Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. There's Bugsy Malone, doing the things that she does. I hope you are too. Please do me a favour, guys, like you always do. Smash the like button for me on the video, if you enjoy the content, of course. Hit the subscribe on the channel if you haven't already. There's 16,700 people that have gone before. Welcome back to them. Welcome to the new. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And I want to kind of posit something here, but I don't want everyone to think that I'm doing this as an advocate for Eric Dier. I'm really not. I'll remind everyone of what happened with the Eric Dier, Ash Phillips things in a second, but just from the get-go, there's a lack of any other real talking points today. So I wanted to kind of posit something that I'm coming at it from as an impartial observer and just want to kind of get your thoughts on it. So this is in no way an approach or an attempt to try to win people over to the idea that Eric Dier should be playing ahead of Ash Phillips. Because that ship has sailed and we'll move on. But just in fact, let me start with the kind of background. So about a few weeks ago, before the Manchester United game, I was on Sav's show, and we were talking about Ash Phillips versus Eric Dier, and I posited the question: in a world where Romero was injured and you had to pick one of Ash Phillips or Eric Dier to deputise alongside Van der Ven against Man United, who would you pick? And everyone on the panel had consensus that it was Ash Phillips, which surprised me. We put it to a panel, so that a poll in the comment section, and it was 90% of something similar to 10% in favour of Ash Phillips, which again shocked me, because I was of the impression that very few, if any, of the people, including myself, that were asked had really ever seen Ash Phillips. You know, he's played the grand total of about 1,800 minutes of professional football. The vast majority were for like England under 17s or England under 18s or Blackburn under 21 reserve team. A few minutes here and there for the championship side in their first team, but not much. And so unless you're a very, very keen observer of reserve team football of championship sides, then I don't really know how you can come to the conclusion that you prefer the devil you don't know than the devil that you do in Eric Dier. It pretty quickly became apparent to me that the vibe was really more like, yeah, we don't know what we've got in Ash Phillips, but we do know what we have in Eric Dier, and he's not good enough, therefore I'd rather experiment. Which is fine. I went to Twitter thinking that maybe there'd be some more reasonable opinions, which was madness in my own mind. And whilst there was a bit more sympathy towards the Eric Dier cause on that platform, it was essentially the same, 72% or something to 28 in favour of Ash Phillips. Zoom forward 2 weeks. Last week in the press, Ash Phillips gets promoted to the first team, and according to, I think it was Ali Gold, Ange Postecoglou has seen a lot of really impressive stuff from Ash Phillips, and he's very happy to have him around. And so the conversation then became, Sean's in the mud, because even Ange Postecoglou agrees, and that's absolutely fine. I am in the mud, right? If you've got someone that has seen you've seen Ash Phillips day in, day out in the training ground, and has come to the conclusion that he is worthy and he's ready, then 100%, of course I'll back it, and it does 100% mean that everyone else was right and I was wrong, and that's absolutely fine. Happens all the time. But then I started to think, is the decision, and by the way, since we've now lost Davinson Sanchez, that hypothetical solution or scenario we were playing out with regards what happens if, well, that could happen. If Romero comes back from Argentina with an injury next week, then one of Ash Phillips or Eric Dier will have to play on the right, unless there's some crazy different experiment with Emerson Royale being played in there instead or something. But ultimately that's where we could find ourselves. And I was sitting there thinking, well, is the reason why Ash Phillips has been promoted purely based on his ability? And let's be honest, his physicalities, his physical abilities, his attributes in that regard are unquestionably fine and relevant. He's massive, he's 6'4", 6'5", he's an absolute unit of a guy. He's really fast, he's good in the air, he's pacey, he can jump. All of the physical side, there's no issue. It's just whether or not his inexperience will lead to the correct decision making processes, and whether he'll handle the pressure, you know, of not just Sheffield United, but potentially having people like Odegaard or Martinelli or Saka kind of running through him. So time will tell, right? But in any event, if Ange is making the decision and Ange just said he is the best of the rest, then I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. The question mark for me, though, is whether or not something has happened in the background between Ange and Eric Dier that has led to that decision being made for other reasons than just who is the most ready. Against Fulham, we drew 1-1, lost on penalties, we made 9 changes. The consensus from everybody in the fan base, or the majority of people in the fan base, was that it was poor from Ange to make so many changes. We've sacrificed a cup early, we didn't need to, too much too soon, yada yada yada. His defence of that decision was pretty clear, and he stood by it. I'm paraphrasing here, but in a nutshell, how am I supposed to know whether these players are good enough for my system if I haven't seen them play? Which you can agree or disagree, but that is his rationale, and he went with it. So I'd ask the same question about consistency in the logic, which is something I always try to look for. If that's the case, then why haven't we seen Eric Dier play in any of the first 4 games? He's the only player, as far as I can think of, that is injury-free, that hasn't had any minutes, really. The only notable player that hasn't really had any minutes yet, who hasn't had an injury in the first 4 games of the season. He hasn't even been on the bench. And so to me, I wonder where the inconsistency, the obvious inconsistency in the logic is coming from. If he stands by his decision to make 9 changes, then he obviously should be seeing everyone play in this system. And let's be honest, Tottenham fans haven't seen Eric Dier play in this system. I'm not saying, once again, I'm not advocating for him. I think his time is done. Where I'm actually going to go with this is to make the assumption that something has happened in the background, that maybe when his leadership position was revoked, that there was an argument. Maybe when he was told that he wasn't part of his plans, and then there was that rumour that he unfollowed Tottenham on Instagram for a few minutes in frustration, and then obviously under potential pressure from the PR team, or his PR team, re-followed them again. I'm not sure if there was any truth to that story in the first place, but I thought there was at the time. And so I just wonder whether or not the decision to drop Eric Dier in place of Ash Phillips is not so much because, or entirely because, Ange Postecoglou has witnessed that Eric Dier isn't good enough, or that has witnessed that Ash Phillips is a superior player. It's more based on something around team spirit, or chemistry, or vibes and energy, and everyone pulling in the same direction. Maybe the rationale for Ash Phillips to be promoted to the 3rd choice centre-back is something other than the best man for the job on the pitch. It's for the best for the club and the chemistry off of it. And even if it's true that that's the case, I'm still okay with it, because for me, chemistry is everything. You look at how many great teams have been unstuck over the years because of poor team spirit. Look at the Holland, the Dutch football club, throughout the 90s and the noughties in every international tournament. It's the best, one of the best, if not the best teams on paper, yet never did anything because they always argue with each other. Look at situations with Manchester United with Jadon Sancho, Damari Gray at Everton, all happening as we speak. They're happening in the public. This particular situation hasn't come out in the public that there's any particular rift, but maybe, just maybe, it's being kept under close wraps. But maybe the decision around Eric Dier to be dropped from the squad and to be considered 3rd place is not because he's the weaker of the 2 players in their footballing ability, but because Ange Postecoglou thinks that harmony in the dressing room and a lack of toxicity in the long run has far more benefits to our output and our success and our best interests than a player who might be potentially more capable right now, but ultimately whose involvement in and around the squad can lead to real negative things. And if that's the case, and I believe it could easily be, then what is Eric Dier up to? What has he been up to since Ange has been there? And more importantly, what has he been up to over the last 2 or 3 years that maybe Antonio Conte was alluding to when he was talking about selfish players in the dressing room and people with the wrong mentality? Could it be that Eric Dier is a poisoned apple? Could it be that Phillips isn't going to be ready, will make mistakes when he comes in, but even if that happens, you'd still rather have him in with his potential and his naivety that's going to cost you in certain moments, but hopefully will not cost you in the long run. You'd rather have that than have someone in and around the dressing room that's going to cause trouble and bring Tottenham down and hold us back. And for me, if that's the case, and I hadn't really thought of it through in that direction before, then I am fully behind Ange's decision to deputise someone that, you know, for what it's worth, none of us, or in my opinion most of us, haven't seen kick a ball, in preference of someone who I don't believe is as bad a footballer as some of you guys suggest he is. But it's not just about what you do on the pitch, is it? Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye bye.